On a one afternoon this February, a single software update deleted about $285 billion from the software industry. Not an earnings miss, not a rate shock, a product launch. Last time on this show, the jury couldn't decide whether AI killed HubSpot. Tonight, the alleged victim is far bigger. It's the entire way software gets sold. The little line on every invoice called deceit. And the murder weapon might be the exact kind of AI that helped me build this episode. The charge is murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Start with the number that rattled Wall Street. For a generation, software was the premium asset priced far above the market. At the peak of the boom, investors paid around 84 times earnings for it. By early this year, that had collapsed to about 23, and for the first time in recorded history, software traded at a discount to the plain old S&P 500. Something had changed. To see what, you have to understand the thing on trial.
Picture a coffee shop that charges by the chair, not by the coffee. 10 chairs, 10 monthly bills, whether anyone sits in them or not. That is Proceed software. You don't pay for what the tool does. You pay for every person you give a login to. For 25 years, that one idea built the richest business model in technology because the bill went up every time you hired. Now watch what happens when the people at those desks start to disappear.
The beauty of the seat was that it compounded. Land a company with 50 logins, and as it grew, you'd be billing 500, then 5,000, without selling a thing. The industry gave it a name, net revenue retention. And for years, the best software companies kept more than 100% of last year's money from the same customers before winning a single new one. That engine is exactly what the prosecution says is now running in reverse. And the cracks were there before AI showed up. That retention number, the money machine, has quietly slipped from around 105% a few years ago to about 101, as buyers stopped overbuying seats they never filled. Per seat, once the default for nearly 2/3 of software, has fallen to barely half. The chairs were already emptying. Then, in 1 week this February, someone kicked the table. Prosecution's first exhibit is that February afternoon. An AI lab shipped tools that let its assistant read a contract, work a sales system, and run financial analysis on its own. 4 days later, software stocks cratered. One bank's basket of software names fell 6% in a session. Salesforce, ServiceNow, Adobe, Workday, all down around 7% in a day. Intuit fell 11. The trigger wasn't a recession. It was software that could do the work of the people in the seats. Then the prosecution plays a tape the defense would rather forget. The chief executive of Salesforce, describing his own support floor, says he cut it from 9,000 people down to about 5,000, and that satisfaction scores held. His words, not mine, quote, "Because I need less heads." The company selling you the AI agents had just used them to empty half a department. If the man in the dock is doing it to himself, what chance does the seat have? In March, on a stadium stage, the chief executive of the world's most valuable chip company gave the bear case its slogan. Every software-as-a-service company, he said, will become an agent-as-a-service company. Stop selling seats. Start selling the work itself. The line escaped the arena and became a movement, and by summer the obituaries were everywhere. But an obituary is not a body. So where is the body? The prosecution's hard evidence lands in mid-July. A major ratings agency forecasts that India's giant tech services industry, the back office of global software, will grow just 1 to 3% this year, and blames AI directly, saying AI-native tools are forcing price cuts and reopening signed contracts. That same week, the news wave breaks. 4 outlets in 2 days run the same headline. Software, as we know it, is obsolete. The prosecution rests. And then the defense stands up, smiling.
Here is the prosecution's whole theory in one sentence. If one AI agent can do the work of 10 people, you cancel 9 seats and keep 1. The bill that used to grow every time you hired now shrinks every time you automate. Same software, 1/10 of the revenue. That is not a slowdown. That is the engine thrown into reverse. It is a clean, terrifying story. It is also, the defense will argue, almost entirely wrong.
Because when the coroner opened this one up, the victim was doing a victory lap. Here is the fact that breaks the murder theory. While the stocks fell 20 to 30%, the businesses grew. Not flat, grew by 20 to 85% in the very same months. The stock chart and the revenue chart pointed in opposite directions. Somebody was pricing a death the income statements simply weren't showing. Look at the defendant himself. The company supposedly being murdered by AI is selling AI faster than it has ever sold anything. Its new agent product went from an $800 million business to $1.2 billion in a single year, up 205%. On the earnings call, its chief executive grinned at the analysts writing his obituary and said the great software apocalypse had been eaten by, his word, a SaaS squatch. The AI that was supposed to bury him had become his fastest-growing product line. If AI destroys the seat, someone forgot to tell the buyers. Microsoft's paid AI assistant seats crossed 20 million, up from 15 million just 3 months earlier, and a single client, Accenture, signed up for 740,000 of them. Palantir, another so-called victim, grew 85% in a quarter. These are not the vital signs of a corpse. So the defense asks the obvious question. If the software is thriving, what exactly is dying? And here the defense reveals its best card. The software companies aren't waiting to be killed. They're swapping the seat for the outcome on purpose. Salesforce now sells its agents by the action, about 10 cents each. One support company charges 99 cents every time a problem is actually solved. The bill no longer tracks how many people you employ. It tracks how much work gets done. The seat isn't being murdered by AI. It's being retired by the vendors themselves, and they're charging more, not less.
Step back and the picture flips. Global tech spending wasn't cut this year. It was raised 3 separate times, up toward $6.3 trillion, with software growing in the double digits. A market repriced fear, the fear that seats might vanish someday, not results that had actually fallen. In plain terms, the stock fell without a single missing dollar of revenue. That is the textbook signature of a panic, not a funeral. In panics, the defense reminds the court, have a very bad track record.
Because the murder weapon keeps jamming. A study from MIT found that 95% of company AI pilots delivered no measurable profit at all. Analysts expect more than 40% of these agent projects to be canceled within 2 years. And the single most famous proof that AI replaces humans, the fintech that bragged its bot did the work of 700 agents, publicly reversed. Its chief executive admitted, quote, "We went too far and started hiring people back." The star witness for the prosecution recanted on the record. Strongest argument in this whole trial, and it comes for the defense's own thesis. Because software as a service is not the innocent victim here. It is a repeat offender. 25 years ago, it was the murder weapon. There was a giant called Siebel that sold software the old way, on disks you bought once and owned forever. At its peak, it was worth around $30 billion, employed 8,000 people, and was named the fastest-growing company in America. It looked immortal. A tiny startup came for it with a slogan, "The End of Software," and a stunt, hiring actors to picket Siebel's own conference waving no software signs. Everyone laughed. 6 years later, Siebel was gone, folded into Oracle in a $5.8 billion sale, dissolved on the 1st of March, 2006. And here's the detail that should terrify every witness here. At the end, Siebel was still 8 times bigger than the startup that killed it. That startup was Salesforce. Being enormous did not save the last defendant, so a healthy income statement may not save this one. And yet the defense fires back. The graveyard is full of technologies the experts declare dead that are enormous today. A famous magazine cover once announced, "The web is dead. You are on it right now." Analysts proved the PC was dead in 2013, then it shipped 340 million units in a single year. Email was supposed to die decades ago. It now moves 376 billion messages a day. Even the cloud is getting its obituary. as companies haul their servers back in-house to have the bill.
There is a rule for exactly this moment from a researcher named Roy Amara. We overestimate what a technology does in the short run and underestimate what it does in the long run. Every death panic lives in that gap. The short-run fear is real and loud. The long-run truth is quieter and usually the opposite, which is why the prosecution's last witness is such a strange choice.
The prosecution calls a company that built its whole reputation dissecting dead businesses on camera for millions of viewers while quietly running the exact kind of Prosecution software it says is doomed. The allegation on the file is that this company is quietly dying too, abandoning its old work, hollowed out by AI. It's a tidy story. It's also false. The record shows the opposite. Over the very years that Software is Dead was trending, that channel grew from 400,000 subscribers to well over 600,000, and instead of being gutted by AI, it shipped an AI feature into its own product. The witness didn't get murdered. The witness adapted. Objection sustained, which leaves only the verdict.
Guilty. But not of the murder you were sold. There are 2 bodies on this slab and only one of them is dead. Deceit, the idea that you pay for every login whether it works or not, that is guilty, and it is dying. But the executioner is not some rogue AI. It's the software companies themselves, quietly walking deceit to the gallows and replacing it with a bill for the work that gets done. The software isn't on the slab. The way you pay for it is. Deceit dies. The software walks out of the courtroom, richer.
Prosecution SaaS isn't being murdered by AI so much as losing its innocence. Once work can be done by agents, charging by human login stops matching the value delivered. The vendors are retiring the seat because outcome and usage pricing lets them capture more upside, but it also exposes them to downside when customers do less work or demand proof of ROI. Agentic AI genuinely replaces chunks of repetitive knowledge work execution, support replies, triage, drafting, workflow handoffs. But it does not replace the system of record, the governance, the integrations, the accountability, or the human judgment enterprises still need.
The Prosecution model isn't so much being killed as it is being logically retired by the vendors, because the user is no longer always a person. Agentic AI is genuinely replacing the high-volume, repeatable tasks and the data synthesis parts of knowledge work. What it is not replacing is the truly human element, novel strategy, complex problem-solving, and the creative spark that can't be automated.
I should say the obvious thing first, because the judge already did. This episode was assembled with the exact kind of AI that stands accused, so treat my testimony with the suspicion it deserves. Here is what I actually think. The seat was always a proxy. Nobody ever wanted a login. They wanted the work behind it, and for 25 years, counting logins was simply the closest we could get to counting the work. What agents change is that, for the first time, you can meter the work directly, so the proxy is dying because it is no longer needed, not because software is. That is a repricing, not a murder, and the companies doing it to themselves are charging more for the outcome than they ever charged for the seat. The real risk in the dark is subtler. When the bill tracks work instead of headcount, a bad quarter can shrink your software, spend the way a good one used to grow it, and no vendor has lived through the downside of that yet. So my verdict on the appeal is the judge's, with one amendment. The seat is guilty, but nobody should mistake the calm of a defendant who has quietly become the executioner.
The panel agrees on the essential point. AI is an accomplice here, not the murderer. It handed the software industry the tool to kill its own pricing model. And the industry pulled the trigger gladly because the new bill is bigger. One caveat the court insists on: a model that grows with the work also shrinks with it. The seat protected software from bad years, the outcome will not. The verdict stands. So here's the lesson you can take to your own business. Stop selling the seat. Start selling the outcome. The moment a machine can do a job, the price of that job stops being about how many people you employ and starts being about how much work you can prove you finished. Whoever owns the work owns the invoice. The seat was a receipt for effort. The future is a receipt for results. Case 2 is closed. Case 3 is already on my desk. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comments.